G'day everybody, my name is Elliot Waters and you're listening to the Dysregulator Podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, feel free to like, subscribe, give it a great rating, and you can share it around with your mates, and you can follow me on Instagram at elliot.t.waters. All right, you've got me in a bit of a mood, everybody. I've just finished work and I'm getting ready to do this episode, and I've been doing a bit of scrolling on social media. And for those that listened to the episode previous to this one, I highly recommend it. My Journal 6, very insightful. You'll know that a big part of that episode and that journal entry that I wrote has to do with the fact that everyone else seems to have partners and kids and I don't. And I go on Instagram today, and today was a beautiful, perfect day here in Newcastle, as it often is, because it is God's country. And everybody seems to be out with their kids and their partners having a great time, while I was slaving away at work, battling panic attacks and just this anxious wave that I just cannot get rid of. And it just, don't get me wrong, I'm happy for everybody, I am. And I get enjoyment out of seeing, the little ones, grow up and think, man, I went to school with their parents, or, that's pretty cool. How good's this? But yes, there's no updates on Elliot's Instagram, though, of my kids, because I don't have any. And that is bugging me, because I'm 34 and I feel like things are not panning out like they should be. And part of that is because, now I'm pivoting to what this episode's actually about, which is because I'm so anxious. And I think my anxiety has stopped me from so many opportunities at living that sort of life. And it's not my fault. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. I didn't ask for this horrendous generalized anxiety disorder, or the autism and the social anxiety that comes with it, or the, OCD, or we'll go through it more in a minute. But it just bugs me, because I feel like I'm trying to put my best foot forward and it just ain't good enough. And I'm just being left behind. And that is a big part of what the last episode was about. And that's a big part of what I've been thinking about today. So anyway, I just need to get that off my chest. But what I'm really wanting to talk about, and it has to do with anxiety, is the fact that my anxiety is getting worse. It is not getting better. This is my generalized anxiety disorder I'm talking about. It's getting worse, and I'm pretty over it, to be honest. Like, I'm on like 7-8 medications. This is the thing. I'm on all these different medications, and yet my anxiety is as bad as it's ever been. I would say, generally speaking, if I averaged out the intensity of my anxiety, now versus, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, I reckon you would see that my anxiety is now at its worst than it's ever been. It is just chronic, it's pervasive, and it just does not stop. It doesn't let me rest. And I'm getting really, really tired of it, to be honest. I really am. And I'm really getting tired of the fact, too, that I take all these medications which have side effects, and some of those side effects I'll talk about in a minute because they're getting worse. I'm on all these meds. Who knows what they're going to do to me long term, and yet my anxiety is as bad, at least, as it's ever been. Hello, alarm bells, what's going on? The meds aren't working. We need to overhaul this and have a look at things. And I've done these medication overhauls before, but I'm at the point now where I just want to get off them. Seriously, I'll just get off them. We'll go back to square one, with nothing in the system. We'll see how my mental health is. And it might be really bad. It could be. But at least then maybe chip away, put one medication in, and then maybe a second one maybe would be good too. But, I've been on over 30, it's like 36 or 37 different medications. I've done every class. I've done SSRIs, I've done SNRIs, I've done NDRIs, I've done tricyclic antidepressants, I've done mood stabilisers, antipsychotics, I've heaps of them, benzodiazepines, all of them. I've done them all, and nothing works. And nothing that maybe works in the short term is sustainable. Like the benzodiazepines, for example, I think of them straight away. They do knock my anxiety down, but they're so dangerous long term. It's not sustainable. It's not an option. And I've had problems with benzodiazepines, as I've said before, lorazepam. I had a bit of an addiction to loraz because it did stop my anxiety. But then those withdrawals were absolute hell, and I do not want to go through that again. Although I may go through something similar soon. So this is my sort of idea. I'm thinking, screw it. I've tried all these meds. They're not working. Now I'm starting to get some symptoms which are starting to worry me a little bit. Maybe it's time to just get off them, start again, see how we go. Start from scratch, try something new. I don't know. But the symptoms, the side effects, are getting worse, like I said. So I've got side effects I've had from some of the medications like the whole time I've been taking them. So clomipramine, for example, the tricyclic antidepressant, strong stuff, very strong, works on serotonin in a big, big way, the strongest of the tricyclic antidepressants. So some of its side effects can include, and these are the ones that I've got, for example, urination problems. So I struggle to urinate and I also struggle to empty. There's no secrets on this show, no secrets whatsoever. There's issues with me being a male, ejaculation, and the fact that often it just doesn't happen, and it's also not good for libido in general. That's been a problem. I'm a 34-year-old red-blooded Australian male who is single. I want these systems to be working, and they don't work very well. But I've had these side effects since I started clomipramine ages ago. And my attitude to it has been, whatever. If it's stopping me from having these obsessive thoughts that can lead to some really dark sort of thoughts and actions developing, those really scary stuff. If I can pivot away from that and I have to put up with this, well, I'll put up with it, whatever. And that's been the same for all the medications. Like the stimulants, for example, give me some rebound anxiety when I come down off them. I get dry mouth from a lot of my medications, give me dry mouth. And it's bad enough that I'm at work and I'm stumbling over words, blah, 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 The pregabalin, Lyrica, for example, I believe has not been very good for my memory. The lamotrigine, when I was on it, wasn't good for my memory at all, which I had to titrate off. But the fact is I'm still on like 7 or 8 medications, and some of the side effects that are really scary are starting to really show themselves. So I'm talking movement symptoms. So I'm saying tremors, I'm talking facial tics, some limbs are doing weird things, T-Rex arms. There's a disorder called tardive dyskinesia, which is very scary, that can be a result of long-term antipsychotic use, which I have been on antipsychotics for a long time now, quetiapine currently, but also olanzapine in the past. And tardive dyskinesia, for example, is scary because it doesn't go away necessarily. If you stop the medication, often it's too late, it's there. And I'm doing a lot of weird movement stuff. So I've got these T-Rex arms. So I'm walking around and I'm doing weird wrist curling. I've got the T-Rex arms happening and people are noticing. My facial tics are getting worse. And lots of eyebrow movements and lip sort of stuff, which is what tardive dyskinesia is all about. And that's scary because, that's not good. I do not want to be doing weird movements, facial stuff, and never be able to get off it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a good thought at all. So there's some of this happening. My balance is not very good. My balance is really poor, actually. I'm doing weird leg flexing things. I'm flexing muscles constantly. I can't stop twitching. There's a lot of these sorts of things happening. And people are noticing as well, which is very embarrassing. I've had motor tics forever, which makes sense with ADHD, autism. There's no real surprise that I also had Tourette syndrome at one point, although now it's just chronic motor tic disorder. Thank goodness. I don't make weird noises anymore, which is good. So I've always had tics, neck movement things, blinking things, shaking my head and stuff like that. But the thing is, they're getting worse. They're not getting better. Doctors used to say when I was younger, went to a neurologist and he said, Elliot will grow out of it in time, Well, I'm 34 and they're still happening and I'm still waiting to grow out of it. And it appears to me it's getting worse. And other medications like the stimulants, the Vyvanse, the dexamphetamine, for some people can help the twitches and the tics, but for some other people can make them worse. And I think they're making it worse here for me as well. Although the stimulants I do think are providing some benefit. But anyway, we'll get into that. But the fact of the matter is, what I'm trying to say is I'm on all these medications. I'm not happy. I am scared of living. I'm petrified every day that it's going to end at any moment. I said this to my GP yesterday, my doctor. I said it appears to me, I don't know, but it appears to me that normal, I shouldn't say normal, but you know what I mean, let's just go with it. Normal people don't think of the fact that life could end any moment. People seem to just dismiss it, well, not dismiss it, but ignore those really, dark, truisms about life. People ignore that and they try and do good things, have a happy life, all that sort of stuff, and move on. But people like me, I can't get it out of my head the fact that I could die at any moment. The people I care about could die at any moment. The people are dying in wars and there's famines and this world is so ghastly and terrible and horrendous. Like, that's the thing. People don't think of that. They like to try and focus on the positive. And don't get me wrong, there is positive too, for sure. But man, I just can't get away from the negatives of life, and it just gets me down so much, and it scares me. I'm scared. Driving to the doctors yesterday, I'm thinking I'm going to get cleaned up by cars, and I was like, at one point I thought I was having a heart attack. Like, this is constant existential crisis sort of stuff. I cannot stop obsessing, this is the OCD, about my health and the fact that death could be around the corner. And I don't like bringing it up because I don't want to put the idea in you guys' heads, in your heads, about this sort of stuff too. But hey, I've got to be honest, this is what I feel. I'm constantly thinking of death and I hate it. I hate it so much. But I'm on all these medications and as far as I'm concerned, they should be helping with these obsessive negative loops, these spirals that I get into. But the fact of the matter is, over time, these thoughts seem to be getting stronger. And as I said, there's some physical side effects that are starting to really show themselves that have long-term implications, along with all the other side effects I've got anyway. Like, I get high blood pressure and stuff from the stimulants, and, the antipsychotics like quetiapine, Seroquel can make me groggy the next day, and, the clomipramine really dries me out and gives me that dry mouth, and, like the other stuff I said about urination and, all that sort of stuff. Like, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot I'm thinking, you do a cost, and doctors do this, and this is why I've been prescribed them, because we've done a cost-benefit analysis, and the cost is these side effects that I experience, and, the price of the medications, because they're not that cheap, and, so there's the cost, but the benefits is that I live a life where I'm engaged in living, I'm happy, even though that's such a thin emotion, but, I'm happy and, I'm engaged in getting things done that I want to get done, living a life that I'd like to lead, Of course, there's going to be ups and downs, that's fine. But the medications, theoretically, should be allowing me to live a life that I find worth living. And I said this on the phone, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but on the New South Wales Mental Health Care line, who I spoke to at length, which we'll talk about shortly, I said that to her. I said, look, to be honest, the way I'm living life at the moment, there is no trade-off for this sacrifice. Every day I am freaking out about anxiety. I work at a place where I'm talking to customers constantly and it kills me. It just wears me down because I'm autistic and, I've got ADHD and I'm fighting that to just keep my job and keep everything in order. And I'm having all these medications which are meant to be helping, but they're causing me to do all these weird movement things which are embarrassing. And like the energy that I expel every day just to stay on top of things, it's just, I don't know. I'm getting so tired. I'm so burnt out. It's just grinding me down. And the fact is, the medications, the whole point of these meds is to unlock a bit of my, energies to be able to pursue things I want to pursue and to sort of put a dampener on things that maybe we don't want to be popping up. A lot of those negative thoughts, the depressive thoughts, we all know, all the negatives of these disorders that I've got. And the fact of the matter is, I look at all the medications I'm on, we'll go through them in a minute, and I am as petrified about life now as I ever have been. They're not working. They're not working. And I'm on all these meds, and a lot of them sort of counteract each other. For example, antipsychotics like quetiapine and clonidine or catapress and propranolol, they try and sort of slow everything down a bit and dial everything down for me. But then at the same time, I'm having stimulants like Vyvanse and dexamphetamine, which are doing the complete opposite. So, there's this push-pull sort of thing going on with my neurons, and I think I'm just getting to the point where I don't have much juice left, it's hard work. Every day it's like this, and it's really, really hard. And the medications are meant to be making my life a hell of a lot easier, and the fact of the matter is they're not. And there's some worrying signs that they're going to have some long-term implications which are not good at all. So this is my thinking, right? This is my way of thinking. I should get off all the meds because they're not working anyway. Get off all the meds, go back to square one, be clean off everything, and then let's reassess how things are going, how my mental health is then. Because I haven't been off medication completely for years and years. And the last time I think it was about 6 years ago, and it wasn't for very long. And then I got put back on venlafaxine and SNRI, which a lot of you guys will know about, Effexor. It's been so long since I've been, I don't want to say clean because this isn't an addiction thing. I'm prescribed these medications, but let's just go with it. For use of a better term, I haven't been clean properly for a long time, and I don't really know what my baseline is. There's every chance that it would be worse than what I am now. Every chance, and I'm prepared for that. But I sort of want to know because there's also a chance that it might not be that much worse. It's like, all right, well, now we can get off the meds and look after ourselves physically a bit more, and some of these side effects might disappear, and all of a sudden we can build off that and maybe just introduce one medication, just an antidepressant maybe, just to knock the edge off things, But I'd like to have this reassessment done because all these meds that they've thrown at me, I've been on so many medications. I've been on every medication class, and it hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. So let's go clean. Let's start again. Let's go from the beginning. Because that's the other thing too. It's at the point now, because there's so many meds and they're all doing whatever they're doing. And, I don't really know, and my doctors have agreed, they don't really know either, which medications are pulling which levers because there's so much going on. Everything's just been chucked in together. We have no idea what's working, what's not. Because it's just, I've been thrown all these medications at different times by different doctors and prescribers, and we haven't been able to follow very well, their impacts and side effects and stuff like that because, it's been a rush job basically. It's different psychs in psych wards and stuff that don't see me for very long, but they chuck me on this. It's like, all right, good luck to you. And, I don't really get a chance to go back and say, hey, look, I don't know if it's working. And my attitude has always been, look, I'm such a complex case with so many disorders as well. There's like 8 or 9 of them too. I probably need quite a wide variety of medication, of a medication regimen because I'm very complex. There's a lot of moving parts and we sort of got to try and tick every box. But I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm improving at all. I feel like my anxiety is getting worse. I'm still way too petrified to go for a new job, and that's making me really depressed. You would have heard my journal entry that I did the last episode before this one. There's some real serious life questions that I'm questioning at the moment, and the medications are meant to help facilitate my ability to be able to answer those questions, and they're not doing it. So my thought is, you know what, screw them, chuck them all in the bin. Let's go back to square one. Let's clean out and let's see what's going on. Because, maybe the clomipramine, for example, is rock solid, and I feel it could be. It might be rock solid. Yep, we'll stay on that one. That's great. But, for example, the pregabalin, because it's not very good for my memory, maybe it's not worth it in the long run. Let's try and get off that one. So that's my way of thinking. So I thought, all right, let's get off these meds and let's see what we're dealing with. What's Elliot Raw like? Let's pull back some of the layers and find out what's really going on. And like I said, there's every chance it's worse. It's going to be worse than it is now. But I sort of want to find out and then have another go at this because I think the angles we're working from, it's not doing the job. It's not doing the job. Because I'm scared. I'm scared of life. I'm scared of living. I feel like death is around the corner. I feel like I'm going to fail at everything. I was even saying to my doctor as well about, because I said about how people, ignore the fact that they could die at any moment, and people ignore that and get on with life and be happy and do all that sort of stuff. And I can't ignore it. It's a fact of life I just cannot get away from. And it's obsessive. It's an OCD thing, which the clomipramine meant to help. But anyway, now I've forgotten what I was going to say. There's that ADHD brain again. But I also said to the GP, what did I also say to him? I said a lot to him. I also said, I can't remember. What did I say? I don't know, but the fact is, yeah, the medications aren't allowing me to, have the confidence to go for the new job and do all this sort of stuff. I'm just stuck. I am stuck, going nowhere. I'm sinking fast, and like there's a lot of side effects coming up here, and these meds, I'm on so many of them, they're just not doing the job. So let's see how we're going. Now, don't get me wrong. Withdrawing from 7 or 8 medications or whatever they are, withdrawing from that many medications is serious stuff. And there is no two ways about it, and I am acutely aware of this. Things will get worse before they get better. They will definitely get worse before they get better. So this was my plan, all right? This is my plan. I thought, okay, I'm going to get off these meds and we're going to see what's going on. What I could do is go back to IJMU. Remember IJMU, the Intermediate Stay Mental Health Unit? I've done 2 6-week programs there. And I thought, okay, how about I go back there, because you got nurses there 24/7, there's doctors there. It's a psychiatric ward. You're looked after. 6 weeks to get off all my meds, be watched by the doctors there and the nurses and carried through, because it'll be hell. It'll be absolute hell. But 6 weeks, just go for it, somehow hold on, clear out of all this stuff, have the nurses carry me through the worst moments, which there's going to be plenty. That was my plan. I'll get a referral, go back to IJMU, 6 weeks, get off the meds. It's going to be hellacious, but hey, I'm made of the right stuff. I'm tough, and I refuse to give up on this with my life. I refuse to give up. Sometimes I wish I would, but I just can't. And I thought, all right, 6 weeks of hell, let's do it. So anyway, I went to the GP, right? I went to the GP, me doctor, who's been in my corner, and this is what sort of happened. So just to rejig again, just to make sure, the real kicker of this, the reason I'm wanting to do this now is because the anxiety is at a point now where I'm almost not able to go to work. So I'm on 8 medications and I can't go to work. Like, hello, like that's ridiculous. This ain't working. And the other reason is those movement disorders, the tremors, the facial tics, the T-Rex arms, that's getting worse and people are noticing. So that is what has really pushed me into thinking, let's try and start again. All right, so I went to my GP. He thought it was a good idea. He backed my idea and was very happy with what I come up with, which is great. So he wrote a referral for the IJMU team at James Fletcher Hospital here in Newcastle, and this is what the referral says. Now, can I just say, by the way, is there any other podcast on the internet that goes to the raw depths as this one? Like, I'm literally reading you my referral from my GP to a psychiatric ward. Like, does any other podcast do that? I just don't think they do. If they do, let me know, because I want to interview the people that run them, because that's outstanding. But this podcast, there are no secrets. No secrets. And this is just another example of how this potty will go to places that others just won't go. All right, let's get into it. Enough talking about how great the potty is, even though it is. Here is the letter from my doctor to the Intermediate Stay Mental Health Unit, James Fletcher Psychiatric Hospital, Newcastle. All right. Okay. Dear psychiatrist, thank you for seeing Elliot Waters, age 34, for consideration of admission to IJMU for medication review and diagnostic clarification. Elliot has a long-standing history of treatment-resistant anxiety. Hell yeah, I do. He has been seen at IJMU in the past and found this very helpful. Definitely. Prior to that admission, he saw Dr. Wellard at Maitland Private. He was the one who diagnosed him with Asperger's and autism. Thank you to him. He has been such a help. He probably doesn't know how much of a help he's been, but unbelievable. Sorry, I had to mention that. So Dr. Wellard at Maitland Private, who put him on clomipramine up to 10 tablets per day. This helped initially, which it did, because it's very good for OCD in particular, and it did help initially. Couple of years ago now. However, over time, his anxiety has been escalating to the point where he is constantly anxious. He struggles to leave the house and struggles to get to work, Bunnings Warehouse. He's constantly imagining doom scenarios. He's in constant fear of doing the wrong thing and letting people down. It is causing him a lot of misery. Ideally, he wants to come off all medications, assess his mental state off them, and then try again with a clean slate. He has a historical diagnosis of bipolar disorder, but I'm not sure of its accuracy. Neither am I. I've never seen any mania, and I've been seeing him for many years now. Yes, he has. He's been in my corner, which is great. Thank you, Dr. Miller. His depression is always secondary to severe anxiety. It is. He has a history of ADHD and OCD and borderline personality disorder. He does find Vyvanse and dexamphetamine helpful, but is aware that they could be contributing to his anxiety. Elliot has been noticing some abnormal posturing of his hands, arms, and eyebrows, and he's wondering about tics and or tardive dyskinesia. I very much would appreciate your further assessment of this. Elliot is keen for another admission to ISMU to help come off the medications, reassess mental state, assess the movement issues, and look at what treatment options would be helpful for him. His current medications are clomipramine, 250 in the evening. It doesn't matter about the dosages. I'm on max dosages for everything. Clomipramine, clonidine, dexamphetamine, lisdexamphetamine, pregabalin, propranolol. Turn the page. What else we got here? What have I forgotten? Quetiapine, Vyvanse, and Viagra PRN. Yes, not much of that lately. So that's the referral that we were trying to send to the New South Wales Mental Health team to get me admitted, hopefully, for 6 weeks of hell to try and get off these meds and see where we're standing. That was the plan. That was my plan. I presented that to my doctor. He reckoned it was pretty good, so he backed it, hence the referral. Now, this is where problems started to develop, unfortunately. So we couldn't find where to refer to ISMU. They've made it a little bit... They've made it harder, it seems to do. And since calling the New South Wales Mental Health Care team, it does appear that they are making it a little bit harder to get to. The referrals aren't really coming from GPs anymore. They've got to come from the community mental health team or from the psychiatric hospitals like the Mater Hospital, for example. So I rang the mental health care line and said, look, how do I get this referral in? I'd like to get in. I feel like this is going to help. I've been to ISMU before. I'm a perfect candidate because I'm so keen to get stuck into it, even though I know how unbelievably difficult the 6 weeks would be. And I wasn't really given much. I to be honest, I felt ignored. And now this is not an episode to run New South Wales mental health system down or the mental health care line and the team, because they've been so amazing to me in the past. But unfortunately this time I did feel a bit ignored and dismissed. And, I've got the shits because I feel like I've got all these diagnoses and no one wants to help me. So, I was sort of going into this conversation feeling a bit, my back was up already, but, and it didn't go well. Although I don't think I was being rude or anything. I was just trying to be forceful because I'm not very good at advocating for myself. So the idea was to find some pathways to access psychiatric support, job services, and maybe some inpatient help. All of that can be done at ISMU. I know it because I've been there. And my idea was, all right, I'll get off these medications. While I'm there, we'll look at the job services. We'll see some jobs in transport and logistics and see if I can, go to my next job and my next career move. And then obviously the inpatient help, because coming off these meds is going to be absolute hell. So being at ISMU would be a good place because they can carry me through it. Now, the phone call didn't go well. I was left with no clear path forward. And to be honest, I felt like the New South Wales mental health system failed me once again. Because, I don't understand. I've got every diagnosis under the sun and no one seems to want to am I in the too hard basket? I don't know. I probably am high maintenance, but, I try to be as best patient as I can be. I just want a bit of help, it's really starting to annoy me because I'm very burnt out of all this whole process and I'm getting desperate. And honestly, I'm thinking now I'm going to have to go back to the Mater and beg for help, which is essentially what I was told on the phone. So what I was told on the phone was that, you'll struggle to find any, psychiatrist that will be happy to get you off 8 medications across 6 weeks. And I said, okay, I get that. But, I'm happy to sign a form to say that I'm well aware of the dangers of what's coming, this is being driven by me here. There's no two ways about it. There's no question from my front. I just need someone to to sort of get in my corner and help me out here and maybe structure something for me, or I'll just do it myself, But that's what I was asking for. She said, oh, you struggle to find someone that'll go down that path for you. And I was like, well, that's not very good because you're the New South Wales mental health team. You guys are the ones that put me on a lot of these medications and they're not working. They're causing some longer term problems. You guys need to help me, which is essentially what I was saying. And I said, I would like to go to Ishmael and do the 6 weeks. And she said, oh, well, you can't get a referral from your GP. I was like, well, I don't know. I've been there twice before. You should have me on file. Like, I've got the referral anyway to add to my case. Like, let's do it now. And she was like, oh, no, you'd have to talk to a psychiatrist to get a referral. I was like, well, this hasn't happened before, but okay. I said, right, how do I do that then? And I said, because you guys don't help me with any psychiatry out in the community. I'm not part of the community team because for some reason you guys never take me on. What do? And she said basically what I would have to do is go up to the Mater Hospital, to the emergency ward and sit there for hours and hours and wait to get an opportunity to talk with a psychiatrist and then beg for help, essentially, is what she said. I've got to beg and be like, look, this is what's going on. I need you guys to help and do a pathway for me to some sort of, resolution with all of this. Can you please help? And possibly Ishmu would be part of that plan moving forward. But I've been to the Mater many, many times. You go to the Mater Hospital when you're at acute levels. I've been there when I've been suicidal and, looking for self-harm and being very destructive. That's why I've gone to the Mater. And, they give you some benzodiazepines and then pretty much send you on your way. But, you can get admitted to the ward as well. But again, it's short term. This is short term stuff, the Mater Hospital. And I said this to the lady on the phone. I said, look, this isn't a short term thing for me. This is a long term. This has been going on for a long time. I need a longer term stay somewhere that can make sure I don't go completely crazy as I go off these medications, a lot of medications that this system has put me on. And so she's saying, oh, well, Ishmu, they won't do it 6 weeks, all this. I said, all right, fine, that's fine. What about Morisset? So for those that don't know, which is probably the majority of you, so Ishmu is intermediate stay, okay? So, medium, middle of the road. If you want a longer-term stay, long-term stays on wards, they happen at a place, Morisset Hospital. It's quite infamous. There used to be a lot of wards there. They've closed a lot of them down now, but there's still a few there. That's the long-term stuff. So that's for the poor people who have, for example, schizophrenia, and, the antipsychotics are just not enough to wrestle them under control, the voices. And it's also the forensic psychiatric wards are there as well. So people who have broken the law and who are sent there by the courts. I don't want to say criminals. They're definitely not criminals. They are poor people with horrendous mental health, and it's hard stuff. But I said to her, look, I don't care. I will go to Morisset, because this has been going on for my whole life. I've got, she goes, oh, so what's your diagnosis? And I said, what's my diagnosis? I said, what? I said, don't you have my file up? Diagnoses. I said, there's multiple, from personality disorders to mood disorders to anxiety disorders to developmental disorders. I've got it all, okay, disorder, there's 8 of them. And I'm saying to him, can't you see, this is serious stuff. I'm a very complex case. I need a lot of work. Unfortunately, a lot of work's gone into me, but we're still at this point. I need some longer term. If it's got to be longer than 6 weeks, if I have to do 6 months to get off all these meds, I'll do it. I'll do 6 months. I don't care. Because she's like, oh, it could take months just to get off one of those meds. I was like, all right, well, get me into a ward so I'm safe. And then we'll do it, I'll just lock myself away for 12 months and we'll do it, because my life as it is at the moment is not worth living, okay? That's the hard reality of it. It's not. I'm trying to find ways to justify the sacrifice of this life that I'm living, and I can't find it. But I still have that hope and I don't give up. I'm resilient. That's why I'm making these phone calls and why I'm really wanting help. And that's what I said to her. I said exactly that. I said, if I've got to go to Morisset where the padded rooms are, I will. I'll go there. And she said, oh, so, all right. And then it got little bit, well, I got a little bit really annoyed after this because I'm driving. This is from the GP. So I'm driving from the GP back to work because I had to have the appointment in the middle of work because my life's a mess. And, I was going back to work and I was stressed and anxious. This was only yesterday. Of course I was stressed and anxious, that's what you always am. But, I rang the mental health care line because I was desperate and I'm driving back to work. I'm like, I didn't get the result that I wanted, We didn't get the referral to ISMU because we couldn't find out how to do it anymore. So I'm freaking out. I'm in meltdown mode thinking my life's a complete mess. It'll never improve. So I'm ringing the mental health care line on the drive back to work. And you guys would know, they've listened to the show for long enough, that I cannot stand making phone calls. So that goes to show how serious I was thinking that this whole thing was. And so I'm trying to make that point. And she goes, well, I can hear an indicator. So you're obviously driving a car. So right there, you wouldn't be able to go to Morisset because you're functioning. And I said, yeah, I am high functioning. I am high functioning anxiety, but autism and everything. And I said, but the thing is, this cannot last forever. There is going to come a point where yours truly is going to snap and I'm going to really, really lash out. And because I have borderline personality disorder as well as these other things, there is that dog in me, that BPD demon that is there and has come out a few times before, but it hasn't lately, but it will if I can't get a result here because it's pretty pissed off, let me tell you. That part of me, that BPD part of me, that isn't particularly, on board with not doing things that aren't self-destructive. It's really making a strong case to just go wild because no one's helping and it's getting harder and harder to push back against. And I said that to her. I said, all right, Morisset, it's forensic psychiatric ward. So, all right, well, have I got to, stab now? Don't get me wrong. I'm not stabbing anybody. And I was only saying this being, as an example. But I said, do I need to threaten someone, what's the story? Because if I have to do that, I really don't want to, but this life is very difficult. This is really hard and I need help. And if that's what I got to do to get help, well, maybe I'll do it, And that BPD sort of, that dog in me, it's not just that, it's, it's just, I'm at my wit's end, and I'm not getting the help that I feel like I deserve. So, I didn't ask for all these medications. I didn't ask to be, have all these mental illnesses that have required these medications and everything else that's going on. And it's really starting to get me. So she wasn't really helping. So she said, all right, what you got to do is go up to the MARTA. You're going to have to sit there and then wait for a psychiatrist and then talk it out. I'm like, man, sit there for hours and hours and I'm not acute, And I feel, I've been up there before when I'm not acute and I don't like it because I feel like I'm wasting their time, But at the same time, this seems to be the only way I can go about it. So the plan is at the moment, it's Saturday at the moment, I finished work at 7 and, it's now, 8:30 at night and I'm all revved up. So, I'm not going to the MARTA tonight, but I will go around Newcastle and put up some posters at the podcast, of course. But I've got one day off this week and then it's 6 days straight, 5 a.m. starts. And then it's going to be so hard. My anxiety is going to be so bad this week. The lack of sleep's going to kill it. It's going to, not kill it, it's going to embolden it. It's going to kill me. But what I'm going to have to do tomorrow, my day off, I'm going to have to rock up to the MARTA. I'll get there pretty early in the morning, try and beat the crowd. And I'm just going to have to go up there with headphones and a book or something and then just try and beg these psychiatrists to help me or come up with a plan. Like, if there's another way to do this, let me know. Like, will it get to because I don't want to be withdrawing from these medications here at home, mummy and daddy's place. I do not want to be laying in bed, withdrawing from all these medications here because it's just not the right environment. And I need people who are checking in and making sure I'm okay. Because, I've withdrawn from like pregabalin before and stuff, and it has rendered me unable to get out of bed, massive panic attacks. Like, I'm talking crying. Yeah, I'll admit it, crying. We've seen what I'm like sometimes when I have those big sleeps and I'm in the shower and I'm crying there too. Like, my world is falling in and I can't handle it. And all those negative thoughts about people dying and all, it's just it's unbelievable how intense it can be. And I know if I try and get off all these meds, I'll be in bed, I'll be crying. There'll be moments where I'll try and break out and do stuff that's impulsive, and like it's gonna be hell, man. Like, I've been through benzodiazepine withdrawals with lorazepam, and that felt like death, and this is gonna be the same, if not worse. And like I'm scared, I am scared. It's gonna be so hard, but I'm at the point where I'm ready. Let's just do it. 6 weeks, rip the Band-Aid off. I can't live like this forever. It's going to get worse. I just got to hold on for dear life, white knuckle sort of stuff, and just hold on for God's sakes. Just Elliot, just hold on, and then hopefully come out the other side, and we come out with a new plan, and all of a sudden I'm living the life that's worth living. You know what I mean? So that was sort of the plan, and I didn't get the response that I was hoping for. I really, really needed, when I left work, I even said to them, because they know what's going on, not the full extent, but if they listen to the podcast, as some of them do, hello guys from work, like I said to them, like, this is pretty important. I need a good result here. I need something to hold on to, something, a bit of traction, get a bit of a footing sort of going. And I didn't get it. At the moment, I've got this referral that seems like it's a waste of time. Which is a shame because I spent a lot of money going to my GP. I've spent so much money on doctors lately as well, trying to get this all sorted. And like I'm finally at the point where I'm ready to take the leap of faith, because it's a huge leap of faith. Because there is definitely that chance that I go off the meds, all of a sudden we figure out, well, holy dooly, those meds are actually doing heaps, and we're actually holding things together a lot more than I thought. Where I'm a mess now. We're gonna have to somehow climb back up and get back on, even footing again. Like there's every chance potentially that this is going to get really ugly, really, really ugly. But I'll tell you what, if I keep, treading water and slowly drifting backwards and not being able to strive for the things I want to achieve because I'm too scared and petrified of everything to do with life, well, that's going to end very, very badly as well. And that ending is coming up quicker than I want it to. And I really want to pull the brakes on. And again, this is why I said to the lady who wasn't, who was helpful. She did tell me some things, and, she did suggest the MARTA thing and said that, like being serious and saying that is, as she can tell, the best way to go about things. As I said, I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated. But now I've forgotten again what I was trying to say. But yeah, I tried to make the point to her that I've tried to make to psychiatrists forever, which is, say, for example, in this moment right now, I'm not acute, okay? I'm not self-harming. There's no suicidal maybe ideation going on. I'm not acute, but I'm very depressed. I'm very anxious. And, those other disorders are doing their thing. But what I try to say, and this is the truth, is that the thing is, if we let this go, if I don't pull the handbrake on this and we continue down this road, this is going to get very, very, very ugly, very ugly. And I've said to psychiatrists at the MARTA before, I've said, I'll end up at Morissette in the padded rooms, if we don't do something. And I've tried to sort of scare them in a way and said, if you guys don't help me, like, who knows what's going to happen. But I don't know. I just haven't been able to get the help over the years that I feel like my conditions deserve, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm not a very good advocate for myself, but it's getting to the point now where there's no choice. There's no two ways about it. If I have to taper off these meds on my own, off my own volition, I'm very, very scared about how that's going to go. But if that's what I've got to do, I've got to lay in bed here for weeks at mum and dad's place, just stewing on how much I hate my life and I'm not achieving the things I want to be achieving, but because I've got a bit of hope and I've still got that resilience, this is why I'd be doing it. If eventually I get no help and I've got to do it myself, I will. But man, I'm praying that it doesn't get to that point, because I don't know, withdrawing from these sorts of medications, so many of them, and I've been on a lot of them for so long, withdrawing from them on my own, that's scary. That's really scary. So anyway, hopefully I'll get some result. Maybe I'll go to the MARTA hospital tomorrow. I'll probably stay there all day, waste my day off, sit in a psychiatric hospital, which, look, let's be honest, I don't really mind that. It sort of feels a bit like home. and I'll try and make conversation with other people, see whatever the other stories are. I like that sort of stuff. But you know what I mean? Like, it's me one day off, and I'm going to be sitting at the MARTA all day waiting to see a psychiatrist. There's no guarantees I'm going to get a result that I'm really hoping for. So I don't know. It's all up in the air, and I'm a bit scared about how this is all going because I need this to go somewhere, and I just don't know where it's going to go though. And it's hard because I feel like I've done the work over the years. I've done so many medications. I've done so many therapy, different therapies. Like DBT, we're doing the DBT course, here on the potty. I did 6 months of that group therapy. That was huge. And, I've done all that. And why am I still got the same sort of problems, I'm in therapy at the moment. I had been going weekly, except, can't afford that. So I've got to, pare it back a bit. But, I'm not lazy. I used to think I was, but I'm not. Oh, God, no, I'm not lazy. I'm tough, I'm resilient, and I rip in, but I'm just trapped in a system that's broken, and it's not about meds. It's really, what it's about is getting my life back, because I don't do anything like I used to. I don't go running or go to the gym because I'm too anxious. Nights games I'm going to, but I'll be honest, I've been hitting the alcohol pretty hard and some other substances as well to get to those games. That's not sustainable or healthy. I shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to go to the football and watch my team and have a good time without having to dope myself up to the eyeballs and be a husk walking around the stadium and just disassociating the whole time and just, hoping that my chants are making sense. That's not it. That's not how life should be. I shouldn't be at work constantly thinking about how I don't have a partner, constantly thinking about how I could die from a heart attack at any moment because of these stimulants that I'm on and all this caffeine. I'm over it, all right? I know I've been waffling on. If you're still listening at this point of the episode, I'll tell you, let me know. Reach out to me because you deserve, I don't know. That's amazing. Thank you for listening because, this is my journal as well as anything else. And I do appreciate the support that you guys are giving me because at times it feels like there hasn't been much support, but I always know, hang on, there's some solid listeners on this podcast that they've got me back, and they're fighting too. And it's pretty cool that we're all fighting together. Let's just, I just want us to get to the top. You know what I mean? So anyway, all right. Well, that was a big episode because I obviously had a lot to talk about. I've obviously had quite a bit of dexamphetamine as well because this episode needed to come out and I knew it was going to be a big one. So thank you for listening if you've listened. I know I've got pressured speech going on. I've done a lot of talking. I've got a really bad dry mouth at the moment. I don't think that's from meds. I think that's from yapping. So I need a drink of water. Thank you for listening. I'll keep you updated, of course, with how things go. So as it stands right now, I'm going to the MARTA hospital tomorrow. I might even do a little check-in from the hospital just to be like, I'm here. How good's this? Dysregulated podcast coming to you live from a psychiatric hospital. I don't know. Does any other podcast do that sort of thing? I don't think so. But yeah, so thank you for listening. If you're enjoying the show, feel free to like, subscribe. If you could really give us a great rating, that'd be awesome. For those that are on Spotify, I've been sitting on 69 reviews for a while now. It'd be great to try and get towards the 100 because I just feel like if I hit 100, that's good for the algorithm. So if you haven't rated me 5 stars and you feel like you'd like to maybe, please do it now, please. That would be greatly appreciated. But thank you everybody for listening. And I'll see you next time here on the potty, hopefully with some good news. And the next DBT skills episode, it's coming opposite action. It'll be coming out very soon. I'm keen for that one. That one's going to be good. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one, and I'll see you later. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.